My business isn't showing on Google Maps. When I search for it, I can't find my business. Well, what's the reason why you don't have your business showing on Google Maps? Well, I'm going to show you today 7 reasons why that might be the case. And by the end of today's video, you should have every reason for your business to be back on Google Maps. So let's jump in.
So one of the first reasons why your business isn't showing in Google Maps may just be the fact that it's not verified. Now, what do we mean by verification? Well, here I've done a search for a hairdresser. I've also set up a business that's a hairdresser, and yet my business doesn't show. And maybe after 1 or 2 pages down here as well, you just notice it doesn't seem to appear. So what can this be down to? What's causing this? Well, we say verification. If I go into my Google My Business, here I've set up this temporary business called Hairy Harry, and it's a hairdressing business, and it's got a service area, and it's registered in the Bournemouth type of area. But you notice it didn't come up on Google Maps, and the reason is because it's not verified. And you notice here at the top, your edits won't appear on Google until you verify your business. So one of the main reasons why you'll find that your business doesn't appear in Google Maps or in Google search terms for Google My Business is because it's not been verified. And all you need to do is click verify now here, or if you haven't got that, you'll notice here on the left hand side, verify location. So if I click that, you'll notice then you have an opportunity again to put in your postal address to then verify it. Now, you might find that last time what you did is you clicked verify later, and that's where you haven't verified it. But at some point, without verification, your business isn't really likely to show up because of the competition around it. So you do need to verify it. And one of the problems a lot of people do have is that they don't want to put their address. They don't want people coming to their house because they're based from a home or an office in their home. And that's kind of a misunderstood situation that we're going to cover a bit later in this tutorial. But for now, verifying your business then is one of the reasons why it won't work. If I do a search in Google for hairdressing, for Hairy Harry, which is the business that I've set up, if you just go back to that again, so you see this business I've set up. If I do a search in Google for it, you'll notice there's no knowledge panel, there's nothing about it, it doesn't really exist. If I click on maps as well, it doesn't show up, it just comes up like this. So that's the first reason. Now the second reason is down to suspension. So the second reason why you may not find your business appearing in Google Maps is because of it being suspended. And this is probably the most common reason, and one of the ones that causes most concern, naturally speaking, because of course suddenly your business that's been getting inquiries suddenly disappears off the face of the earth, literally off the face of Google Maps Earth. So what causes this suspension? Well, one of the biggest reasons is because people try to either have too many different offices for one business, so 2 different locations. In effect, they're trying to get more than one entry into Google Maps and Google My Business. Or the other reason is because they've just broken the rules, the policies, they've caused a violation, they receive an email from Google saying that they have been suspended. And there's a few things here we just need to iron out. So just as an example, if I just do a search for web designers in LA, I noticed that sometimes the business names are quite long. And if that's a genuine business name, and they genuinely are known as Digital Vertex, Los Angeles, CA Web Design and CA SEO Company, well then that's okay. But often these types of things get reported as being misleading. I mean, why have they put Web Design and SEO Company in their business name, their real life business name? When people search for SEO Company or Web Design, then because that's in the title, and the title is held in a high regard by Google, then they do seem to get a lot more traffic. Now this you have to be really careful with, because if that's not your genuine company name, if you've not registered that in every area, so whether it's with Yelp or Yale or with Facebook, that needs to be your real company name. If your website isn't calling it that company name as well, then in time people start to report this, and in time you may then find that Google's alerted and then suspends you, and they'll just call it for quality issues. So that's one of the biggest reasons why people get suspended. Another reason is because they have more than one office. So often when you flick through, you notice, like just notice here, WebWorks and WebWorks again. Now these are different because they've got different One's 4.4 with 16 reviews, one's 5 with 2. And yet I can notice here that the telephone number is identical, and they've just changed one thing, North Hollywood and Venice. Now these may be two genuine different offices, but the chances are that they're trying to get extra traction within, in effect, if there's 20 results, they've now cut that in half because they've got 2 out of 20, which is 1 in 10. So this is another thing, another method which gets reported often, and before you know it, then they're suspended too. And then they don't just have 2, which they were with now, but they'll have none at all. And that's another thing that can happen. Now, these might be genuine, so I'm not suggesting for one moment that that's the case with these two companies. So what can you do then to avoid suspension? And what can you do to make sure that you do get found in Google? Well, just a couple of things you can do. If you search in Google for Zanet Design and then something like Zanet Design Google My Business Suspended or quality issues, then this page will come up. And here I go for a video of how you can fix suspensions. And often this is an unpopular video because it doesn't really give you the full answer to what people want to hear. People just want an instant fix. But this video just gives you the realism of what has happened and how to solve it. And if you read through this article, it will just show you things like what happens when it's suspended, what you can do, but particularly the difference between a soft suspension and a hard suspension. So you will find that with a soft suspension, which most people get, then these fixes can be done quite quickly and you'll see yourself back on Google My Business again. So this is a really helpful article if you want to get it fixed. There's also another article I've done called 7 Tips to Avoid Suspension. So again, if you do a search for Zanet Design and then 7 Tips to Avoid Suspension in Google My Business, and you'll find here, and I'll put the links to these below the video, you'll find here it gives you again how things are reported, and this is a tip here or a video on how to avoid suspension altogether so that you don't get that situation in the first place. So some great useful thoughts there to follow. These are all links to different parts of the video. If there's something in particular that you want to check out, and you'll find that's a really useful article in helping you to avoid suspension. So the third area is just the fact that you've relocated. Maybe you relocated a few months ago and you forgot to update your Google My Business. And you might think, well, why is my old address still not showing on Google Maps? But of course, Google Maps is run by many people that submit information, and maybe 3 or 4 people have said that this business is now closed down or that it's moved. And as soon as Google gets several people saying the same thing, then often it will make the changes automatically. So you might find that you're not appearing, and all you needed to do is just go into your Google My Business, as I've done here. You need to click on Info, and then you need to just change the location. So if you had a location for your deliveries, or this was your address for your office or your business location, then just update this and apply. It'll take 2 or 3 days to be approved, and then you'll start to appear on the maps again. Or if you were a service rather than a shop front, then again, just go in here, make sure these are all correct, and then apply them as well. So it could just be that businesses do move. You might have gone to a bigger facility, you might have moved into a nearby town or city. Just make sure that that's now currently updated on here under Info, and then that should make sure that your relocation is found on Google Maps. The fourth area could just be down to the fact that you haven't wanted to put your address in. So we kind of alluded to this earlier. You don't want to put your address in because you don't want people coming to the door. But this is really a misunderstanding, and Google does allow for the fact that some people run businesses but they don't have a shop front for people to visit. Let me just show you how you can go about this then. So basically you want to register your business, go back to registering it properly. So if you haven't registered your business because of that, then you need to then enter your business name. Again, we've discussed this before, make sure it's accurate and that's what you're registered at. And if you have already registered it, it will come up here. If not, then as it says here, create a business with this name. So this is just going to be a mock version of a business. I'm going to make this a mobile disco business. Okay, so business name 5 Jive. Let's then click next, and then it's asking what's a business category. So this is going to be a mobile disco. So let's see if that comes up, mobile disco, there you go, and click next. And then this is the key bit. Do you want to add a location customers can visit, like a shop or office? Now if you put yes, then the address that you put in will then be the place that people can come and visit, and therefore you're a shop front in effect. But if you put no, that's because you're a service. That's because you service an area. Now you may find that because you service an area that you don't then have a pin on the map. So you are on Google Maps, but it's just that you don't have a location pinned because you're covering an area instead. And this is often where people get a misunderstanding. So if I click no, you still have to give Google your address, but first of all you just then give the area that you're going to cover, and then you'll then give your address. So let's just say it was Oxford. And then you have to start giving your information, your website, and so on. So you just carry this through, all the way through, and then you'll then be able to then get to a point where you then verify it, but you will need to put your address. Now, if you find this confusing or you want a bit more detail on this, then there is a video you can go to. If you go to YouTube and type in Zanet service area or shop, this has caused so much confusion in the past because Google's changed it a couple of times recently. And when they changed it 6 months ago, I did then produce this video that explains how to go about it, whether it's a shop or a service, and how you can also unlock certain things, because Google did make some confusing comments and did make some difficult things for businesses back then. So you'll find that really useful if you're unsure as to how to go about it. But that's really key then, is don't get hung up on the fact that you need to give your address for the public. Just make sure you register your address with Google, and then make sure that you then choose which area it is that you want to cover. But anyway, as it works out, 5Jive is no longer going to be a business for Mobile Disco this particular moment of time. So the fifth reason why you might not be showing in Google Maps for your business is because you're registering your business, but for some reason the area that you've registered is already being registered by another company. And this often happens when you've got shared office space. So in this case here, we see there's quite a few national, and you'll find even locally places where you can hire office space. And of course, if it's for your business and then you register your Google My Business with that particular address, if it's not unique and that area is being used by another business too, then again, that makes it really difficult for Google to know whether you're re-registering the same business or you're using more than one business on the same address. And so Google tends not to allow for that. And that can be tricky as well. So in this case, you need to make sure you've got a unique address. Maybe the answer is to use your home address for the registration purpose anyway, and then run it from there. And then really, it's just tricky. You might just need to check to see if the address has already been registered on Google My Business, or whether there's something you can do as a unique address. Of course, things like PO boxes against the terms of Google, so often that causes a violation, and shared office space is very tricky. I think Google probably doesn't allow for it, because it seems to be that that's often the reason why people get suspended. So hopefully that's another reason why you may find you've not been found in Google Maps, is the shared address. So the sixth reason why you may not be appearing in Google My Business is down to the authority of your business itself. So in Google My Business does rate businesses based on how they're considered as a location authority. So if it lacks a location authority, if it lacks authority from a domain point of view for your branding strength, these things are taken into account as well. So you notice here, link signals and inbound anchor text, linking domain authority, 16% of the ranking of your business is based on things like linking domain authority. And on top of that, when you then consider if your company's been around for 5 weeks, it probably hasn't even really gained any strength in Google at all. So it might not appear immediately because of that. Compared to 5 years, obviously that makes a difference. Also, you can check the domain authority with certain tools. Google Maps obviously will give you an idea as to whether it's got any authority at all. You can look at geolocation, which I looked at a previous video. That helps to give it authority. So when you refer to your business and when you link through to your business and link through to your Google My Business, then you can use things like geolocation and the images. And that will just help, again, give it authority in that local area. Also, your ratings, your rankings, your NAP, which is name, address and phone number, they all need to be consistent, because that adds to the authority of your brand. Links to you will bring in relevancy as well. So if you get links from other relevant, authoritative business websites, that produces an improved branding for you and a branding strength. And all these things go together to rate you as an authority in Google. So Google does look at things like branding as an important factor. It measures your business based on those types of things. Now, if you've got very poor in all those areas, you may just not even make the top 100. You might not even be seen, yet alone make the top 3 and get traffic. So domain authority is important. If I do a search for Harry Hairdresser, which we looked at earlier, you'll notice I get no knowledge panel whatsoever because it's got no authority. It's not been approved. It's not visible. It doesn't really exist as far as Google's concerned, even though I do have it registered, but not verified. And so when it comes to NAP as well, I mentioned name, address and phone number. This consistency is an important factor, and I've got a link I'll put below that just looks at the importance of making sure that you get not a NAP in this case, but a NAP as in name, address and phone number. So we look at 3 questions there. What is business NAP? Why does it become important when it comes to your rankings? And why is the consistency of it important too? And we just cover those kind of well-known questions. We look at some examples of how things can be right or wrong from Google's point of view. So you'll find that really helpful if you want to know how you rate. But basically that should be helpful in seeing the importance of authority, the 6th area, that may be the reason why your business isn't showing on Google Maps. So before we go into our 7th one, which has got some real gems in it, just to say, make sure you subscribe and put a question down below if you're not too sure on anything on this video. And the 7th and final reason why you might not be ranking is down to the fact that you might not have the proximity. You might not be able to get beyond just the few roads locally to you. So depending on your authority and depending on where you're based, and the only way you'll really know is to do searches in the areas that you're wanting to rank in. So proximity is a massive thing, and one of the useful things that I use is Bright Local has a free tool, so I'll put a link down below for you, and you can have up to 10 searches a day. You can put your search term, you can put the area you want to search from. Now the advantage of this, of course, is you can search from anywhere in the world, so you can choose any area. So if you wanted to see how you rank in, say, a nearby town or city, then you can put that in as well. And that may be the reason why you're not ranking, is because when people are searching for your business, they're just getting the strength of the local city. Maybe you're out in the countryside, you're not being picked up. So you can test it out. You can do different areas using this tool. It covers all sorts of countries as well, and you can do it within Google Search or Google Maps. So I'll leave the link for that below, but that can be really useful. And on top of that as well, you just notice that again, when we dissect how Google views things, 25% of it is just those types of things within Google My Business itself. And you notice here proximity is one of the things mentioned as being something that Google looks for. So when Google ranks your business, it's often to do with how close you are to the person searching, rather than the fact that you're in a town, or maybe even you name a town or a city within your title. So to help you there, this is a really useful factor of understanding how searches work. So even though that some things are down to personalization and there's other citations and on-page signals, you notice that a big chunk of it is down to things like proximity and categories and some of the settings within Google My Business itself. So you really need to understand this. Now, if you want to get hold of this, you can download this quite easily. You can also have an explanation of how local SEO can help small businesses. This is going to be really helpful if you want to grow your business on a local basis. So what this does, it just goes into a bit more detail of how this works. You can download it as well. It explains what behavior is, what Google reviews are. There's a whole video to go for each one of those as well to help you. And then you'll see things like thinking local when you write things, the importance of proximity, which we just mentioned there, and on-page links as well. All these things build authority in Google, and I reveal basically how it works, what you can do, and how you can improve your rankings.